Hey, it's Rye. So we have an interesting opportunity before us. We have a vacancy on the Supreme Court, and I find it bizarre that the whole conversation around it surrounds the a question of whether or not someone should be nominated and uh, considered and confirmed. And if not confirmed, then who's the next person? And who's the next person? And this keeps going until there's a qualified person to take the job. When we've had multiple qualified people go through this process and be confirmed, there's no reason why expectation should be any different. Why we should be looking at it like, oh, could there not be enough votes for this? There should be no question there are enough votes for a confirmation. And we're not waiting a year. Um, so interestingly, just like the speaker, the House Speaker, um, as well as a Supreme Court justice, they do not have to be, well, in the case of the Speaker, they don't have to be a member of Congress to be Speaker of the House. They could be any citizen. Same thing with the Supreme Court justice. It doesn't have to be a lawyer or a judge, it could be anyone. Um, and we've obviously learned that our president could end up being anyone pretty much. uh, only if you're 35 and born here. Let's make sure everybody else is kind of a little more loose. But, I get, if I thought people were talking about this in a way that was reasonable and in the interest of advancing freedom and fairness in America, then I'd be down with this debate about who it should be, but there should be a debate about who it should be, not a not a debate about whether someone should be confirmed at all, just because of who is president. It doesn't matter who is president. So the president will find someone and nominate this person, and they will be considered fairly. And not be subject to ridiculousness. I trust there are a lot of people in the Senate who I are not going to let this just go by. I'm sorry. They're just, I mean, if you look at the snowstorm when you had like all the women senators, I don't know if it was all of them, but everybody running the Senate during the snow were women. So, ladies, please help us out here. Let's not, you know, please lead, because there's no leadership. So it's time for you to lead. Get together. This is not a partisan thing. This is a citizen thing. The citizens need justice. There's a lot of injustice out there. So for us to delay justice in any way, especially something so obvious and formal, to even consider that politics could be a rational excuse for not acting. As for who it should be, oh, they should be conservative or liberal or appealing to a Republican or Congress or a Senate. How about a libertarian? I think there are a few libertarians that we could all get around. I could give you a little list. How about, okay, I think the most obvious is Ron Paul, and probably the best option. Just incredible, a number of years of service. Obviously, I've been pretty vocal about terms of Congress, but I also recognize, there are the people that have stuck around because there are not so great actors sticking around in Congress. So you need the good people to stick around. So you need the Ron Pauls, and people like Ron Paul they carve out this space, and someone like him deserves to be considered. I think it would bring an interesting perspective to the court for sure. Plus, what I see, we've had 2 new women added to the court, which is wonderful. And a lot of the names, it's women, it's, African American, it's Hispanic American. Why? I mean, the previous holder, we often look at that. People are looking at the political philosophy or orientation of who the previous justice was. So, he was Italian American, a European American. Can we honor our European Americans? It's okay. We honor everyone else in our culture, and I think that sometimes we forget about certain people who did not always have it great, and now are lumped into the whole white, whatever white is, white American. But there was a time when they weren't white. They were just as colorful as everybody else. Or there's those of us who are very mixed, I'm not sure what Ron Paul's background is, but, white guy-ish, why not a white guy? What's wrong with having a white guy? At least, talk about some white guys, or white-ish. So Ron Paul, he's really, if you want to judge, there is Jim Gray. Jim Gray's fantastic. He was a judge in California. In 2012, he ran as the vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. really smart, really fantastic, just point of view. And I think would be very effective at advancing liberty through the courts, through a seat on the Supreme Court. And I think someone who could be a consensus candidate, absolutely. At least among people who care, are being rational. So, if you're more comfortable having a judge, then Jim Gray. Both he and Ron Paul, you don't even have to have a hearing with these guys. You know what they're going to say. They're going to advance liberty. And that's a pretty good litmus test if that's what you care about in these things. We should care about just the fact that these are rational citizens who would bring an interesting and good point of view to the court. And I really would, I trust these people. I trust them to care and be as passionate as the previous seat holder. Passionate and unapologetic and just those are two real libertarians. They both identify as libertarian. Ron Paul obviously ran in the Republican Party. He's kind of pushed away from them at this point. He's been encouraging people to, look at the Libertarian Party. Jim Gray has been pushing the liberty issues even since, his campaign in 2012, which was ignored. He was not put in the debates. He was on the ballot all across this country, and he should have been considered. He should have had a debate with Joe Biden and Paul Ryan. That's something I like to see. So maybe someone more of a Democrat, but a libertarian. There's Jim Webb from Virginia. He was a senator. He was a secretary of the Navy. It'd be interesting to have a Marine. Yeah. How about that? Another white guy or European American, but he's sensitive to the plight of people who just have been effed over, whether you're black or Hispanic or gay or just poor or independent. He says he's perceived as a Republican in a room full of Democrats, and they think of him as a Democrat in a room full of Republicans. He's truly a very independent type of person and has fought for social justice and criminal justice, and if you want someone who will be very effective at racial justice too in this country and have bring a very nuanced and wise perspective on that, I think that would be a very good thing to have. So these are all great people, and they should be considered. They should be on a list. They or anybody else shouldn't have to go through a bunch of bull if they even are considered at all. They should get a fair hearing, a hearing at all, period. Whoever it is. So, or just any citizen. Like we said, like I said, like they've said, people have said, um, a regular citizen. I put myself up as a candidate for speaker because I felt like might as well have an option, a citizen, a regular citizen. Um, I'm just imagining being up there, someone like me, and if anybody can go up there and dispense justice, I can do it. I do it all the time. I do it every day. You have to dispense justice, and then you don't get thanked for it. You just deal with it. Some things you're just patient with. Some things you just deal with. Another good example of a citizen is someone like in law enforcement who has to dispense justice, has to decide what to do, what course to take right there in that moment when something is happening. Whether it's something that involves violence or shooting, or down to, a teenager with marijuana. Like, there's judgment to be had there. There's also, now we're giving law enforcement the tools to deal with a heroin overdose. This is helpful, I'm sure, in the fight of in this issue, but why is it so necessary? Why is it at the point where the police are expected to be doing the job of a healthcare professional? Um, if we are training these people to do this stuff, there's value there. We're making them do jobs that are above and beyond. They shouldn't have to decide between arresting someone for marijuana or drugs at all. They should be facilitators if they encounter the situation, facilitators towards a more peaceful resolution to whatever's going on with that individual involved. Put someone like that on court. Someone who deals with these things in real life. Yeah, someone with empathy, experience just dealing with life. So, there you go. You got some options there. All right. I will do a little plug for the presidential campaign. Like I've said before, in the primaries, at this point, all that's left for me is Bernie. I wanted Ron Paul in the Republican primary. That didn't happen. Didn't even really get a good, fair shot at that. And that's just a real mistake. I mean, but there's a lot of mistakes going on that end. So there's really no one that I support in that primary, the GOP primary. There's I gave some consideration for a few people, but beyond Rand Paul, I've talked about before, but it's just unfortunate. So that's actually the fringe party at this point. So in the Democratic primary, I made clear it's Bernie. We need someone to liberate the Democrats. I've worked with Democrats a long time. And we need someone like Bernie to really just shake it all up. Um, but I think there should be a really good third party presidential candidate. And so hold off on the general election. I'm holding off on the general election. It's going to be a three-way race of strong people. And so stay tuned, I guess.